No Spot Motivation, episode 16. Worked our way up to 16. So the last episode was death and rebirth. Death and rebirth. Everything in life is a constant death and rebirth, even breathing. Inhale, life. Exhale, death of that air. Interestingly, sadly, I had to go to a funeral last week. Close family friend who was like a surrogate grandfather growing up. It's actually my first babysitter's father. But her parents lived right up the street from us when I was little. We go to their house all the time, like Christmas and random birthdays and everything, just like grandparents. I feel I was closer to them than my actual grandparents for the most part, certainly for that period of my life. But this happens. He's 86, had a stroke in the last year of his life. It was very challenging. This is how life works. So he's not in pain anymore. That's what's more important. And death brings people together. I hadn't seen her, the woman who was my babysitter, in like 25 years, closer to 30, probably. My mom spoke to her, and she's kept up as a family friend, is the point. I digress. In that last episode, we're talking about waves. Everything in the universe is a wavelength of energy connecting in some form, right? Light, ocean, sound, gamma, on and on, microwave. The wave of energy that we are was there before we were even thought of, and it's going to be there long after. That's the wave we're surfing on, right? Surf's up, dude. Every day is a go out. For those of you not from a beach community, go out's when you go out in the water. But every day we get is that. Regardless if it's literally going out into the ocean. Which I'm overdue for, come to speak of. So we have borrowed time, but sorrow's fine. The thing is, it's not borrowed time. This sense of urgency that we can have in life doesn't need to present because it's not finite. That wave was there before, and it's going to be there after. The bipolar issues I've wrestled with, a manic episode, is a result of everything has to be done now. When I had my first episode and I was diagnosed, I thought people were following me. I was going to start a record label and make it a major label out of my dorm room at Sonoma State, and was going back and forth and taking items from my parents, like I was going to decorate the room with their things. I'm stealing, first of all. That's not good. To the point, even one of my best friends ends up calling the police, someone I've known since I was 5, as he should have, which my mom even follows up and gets a wellness check. That's when the police come and they agree. Everyone agreed, and everyone was looking out for my best interest. But the point is that urgency is a false manifestation. Haste makes waste. Do it right the first time. The lazy one works twice as hard. So this sensation of thinking that we have to do it now, it has to be right now, there is no better time than the present, that part's true, but the remainder isn't. Whatever we're able to fit into this period of the wave, into this wave timing, is what we can fit. The rest, we'll paddle on to the next one, and we'll catch it then. Because all we have is the present. You're either paddling onto the wave or you're on it. Or you're paddling out to get the next one. And each one of those, regardless of what state you're in, is what you're doing at that moment. But, death is sad, right? It's great to see these people and have death bring people together, but it's sad to see somebody lose someone that they care about, that they're not going to be able to have a conversation with again, that it was important to them. But that importance doesn't end. What I saw at this funeral, and what I've seen in the past, but I didn't really notice until, because this man was he's a regular guy. He wasn't the mayor of the town or a politician or famous or any stretch of the imagination. There was over 100 people there. And over 100 people went to the banquet afterwards. And every one of those people in that room, he had touched in some way. So he's physically gone, but his spirit is very much alive. Every single one of the people in that room have some connection to him or they wouldn't be there. So that can remove that sense of urgency. You do what needs to be done. You do what's best for your family, for yourself. But for yourself more than anything. Because that energy you're putting in the universe, if you're not presenting your best self, it's all flat. It's all whitewash. There's no wave to be on. You're just swimming around. Just killing energy, wasting time. That's time wasted. So enjoy that borrowed time is so priceless. But it's also infinite. So that urgency can be removed into what you need to be doing right now. That's the only urgency. But it needs to be done correctly right now. I was listening to this podcast yesterday, and it's I mentioned it last episode. Jack Kornfield's called the Heart Wisdom Hour podcast, episode 31 in this case. And there was a quote that he quoted, so down the line we go, that resonated so beautifully with me that it relates to this form of sorrow. Because there's always a struggle and a sorrow. We all go through them. We're always having one or the other. How we deal with them is our own process. But regardless, there's lessons in all of them. That's the struggle, primarily, is waiting for that wave of a lesson to present itself. But in the meantime, you get in your own head. So, this is the quote he said that should resonate within this balance of time and dealing with the sorrows and struggles of your life in a much more simplified manner. It is for me. All you need is already inside. Only you must approach yourself with reverence and love. Self-hatred and self-distrust are grievous errors. Your constant flight from pain and search for pleasure is a sign of the love you bear for yourself. All I plead with you is this: make love of yourself perfect. Give yourself to infinity and eternity, and discover you do not need them, for you are all of this and beyond. Nisargadatta. That's who that's by. He's a Buddhist angel, I suppose. It's referred to in Buddhist texts. But as I said before in the last episode, I'm going to end with a poem on all of these that I wrote that refers to these. And I wrote a poem called Sorrow that condenses some of those podcast messages I'm learning, some of my own introspection and reflection. That was episode 31, by the way. Heart Wisdom Hour podcast, episode 31, Jack Cornfield, if you want to listen to the whole thing. This is the poem I wrote, which is brief summaries of that and intertwining them into my life, which is called Sorrow. Really stepped out on that one. Sorrow, that feeling behind you when you think you're being followed, a river of tears that at a glance appears shallow. You can try and run from it, but sorrow remains a shadow, felt in the presence of now, sometimes bleeding till tomorrow. It's one of 10,000, but everybody's got one. Life insists you take it on the ride, like sorrow's riding shotgun. Try to put your finger in the barrel, only to find that it's too narrow. Thinking you can stop the powder before it bursts only makes it hurt worse. So you sit with it, but sorrow stole your chair. Breathing in the presence of mind, you find that sorrow doesn't care. An orphanage full of problem children, and one has found a home. Another steps in. Sorrow's fiancé breaking tradition on its wedding day. Something bruised, nothing borrowed, something old. That's nothing new. Sorrow loves the gloom, but it's kind enough to let you choose. It can be removed with light, but returns when the clock strikes midnight. Hide and seek, nowhere to hide. The consequence is tainted pride. Evaporative confidence, starving, chewing on rawhide. The choice you thought you had, you already tried. Checking every drawer, nothing left to find. Could have sworn you looked everywhere, but sorrow's on the inside. The struggle it provides, found in the strength of your lies. A Chinese water torture test, just getting warmed up. It ain't over yet. Sorrow will be back in the morning. Acid baths and waterboarding. Sorrow, the finish line that you just can't break through. Sorrow perched on the hands of time. Enough of the gloom. There is some good news. Sorrow's foe is acceptance, the lock with the only key that sorrow just can't get in. Close your eyes and breathe. Acceptance helps you to your feet, cracking the code to these unsolved mysteries. In yourself you must believe. It is then and only then sorrow waves its white flag and then seems to concede. Have a good night.